Good evening, my name is Alex Schneidinger and I'm currently enrolled as an engineering technology student here at Montgomery County Community College. As engineering students in our current world, it is critical for us to be aware of the risks involved with the world's industrial growth. Today, skilled and innovative engineers are important because they are constantly tasked with developing cleaner alternatives for harnessing and using energy to keep the world economy moving. For this project, I have narrowed my focus to the decline of oil prices worldwide. The way in which our global economy and industry is set requires humans to utilize crude oil, which can be refined into various forms. It is used to power heavy machinery for industrial growth, fuel for automobiles, ships, planes, locomotives, and also to heat our homes, schools, and businesses. There are only a few examples of how crude oil is used worldwide. That being said, there is a constant demand for this natural resource, as the world's population is constantly increasing. This causes humans to grow industrially with an increase of large cities, particularly in Asia, South America, and Africa. According to Bloomberg News statistics, the top 15 fastest growing GDPs for the year 2015 were all nations of these three continents. This means that there will be more construction, transportation, manufacturing, and trade, which will inevitably have an environmental impact. For example, China is projected to have more drivers on the road than the United States has people. Since the yearly demand for crude oil is always increasing, why have oil prices dropped within the past year? To better understand this trend, we must first analyze the surplus caused by the world's leading oil producers. Russia and OPEC, an organization of some of the world's top oil producing countries, have projected in the past that they will continue to produce oil at a high rate through the year 2016. This high rate of production was put into place to supply the world's need for oil. Although it seemed to be a good plan at the time of projection, they did not expect China's government to make major industrial and economical changes, due to the fact that their carbon output has been at an all-time high within the past few years. Chinese officials have made it clear that they must change the way in which they proceed to grow industrially. More cities in China, such as Beijing, are experiencing dangerous smog levels, which are having substantial impacts on the environment and its inhabitants. The smog is forcing children to stay home from school on days which the city deems to be too dangerous. People are also told to stay indoors and are recommended to wear protective masks in order to assist against the toxic air. Along with political changes in the Chinese government, the increase in public safety was one of the main causes behind the decrease in oil demand worldwide. Given the size of China and its vast industrial capabilities, the slightest changes in their policy can have an effect on the rest of the world. The supply continues to increase due to the fact that most oil-producing countries have not yet made adjustments to their rate of oil drilling and refining. My passion project is focused on the oil industry and how it is affected by the environment and the economy. It is understood that oil prices are at an average low in comparison to the past decade. To be more specific, the average cost for a barrel of oil is roughly $29 in the year 2016. Compared to $49 in 2015 and $109 in the year 2012. It is also understood that the demand for oil worldwide has increased every year. This demand calls for an increase in drilling and refining by the world's leading oil producers. Russia, along with members of OPEC, an organization comprised of some of the world's top leading oil producers worldwide, rely heavily on the production of oil in order to fuel their economies. The oil industry can make relatively small countries very wealthy. The United Arab Emirates, a member of OPEC, has grown substantially within the last 20 years due to the fact they have focused their attention to exporting oil in order to meet the demand of growing countries such as China and India. The large oil companies rely not only on their customers but also on their own economists to project how much oil they must produce in order to meet the needs of their customers. It is evident that China's industrial power has increased substantially as they have risen to become the world's leading exporter and boasts the world's greatest economy. Inevitably, China's economic growth will also cause an industrial growth in terms of more cities, ports, factories, public transportation, and also motor vehicles. All of this industrial growth will call for more oil in order to fuel the nation's ability to export goods and sustain larger urban populations. As an outsider or government official, this economic growth would seem to be a positive scenario for the country. As for the inhabitants along with the wildlife of these industrial regions, they are living with the effects of increased carbon output. This carbon has a great impact on the water and air levels in the cities. In particular, the capital city of Beijing is experiencing some of the worst effects of this industrial growth. Its geological structure, with mountains on one end and the ocean on the other, does not allow for polluted air to circulate properly throughout the region as it becomes trapped inside the city. This buildup of carbon monoxide is harmful to the well-being of the city's people. It has even gotten to the point where businesses and public transportation have been temporarily suspended once smog levels reach a dangerous rate. Beijing is not the only city facing these issues in China. This has raised the awareness of the Chinese government as they plan to slow their industrial growth in order to improve the air quality in their country. This sudden economic and environmental change in the government policy will affect the rest of the world as the oil supply continues to climb and China's oil consumption will begin to fall. The decision by the Chinese government will prove to be a major factor in the supply of oil worldwide. The current surplus will continue to remain until major oil producers such as Russia and OPEC decide to change their policy on oil production. There are currently plans in place for OPEC along with other nations to discuss their future plans regarding oil production. Although it seems logical for OPEC and Russia to limit their rate of production in order to compensate for China's slowing economy, negotiations are not quite as simple. Lukoil is known as Russia's second largest oil producing company behind Rosneft and is led by their CEO, Vaget Elekperov. He was recently quoted in a statement that essentially states that his company, along with other Russian oil producers, will not negotiate with OPEC and their plans to freeze oil production. Russia's economy relies heavily on their oil production as nearly half of the nation's income comes from oil exporting. That being said, many of Russia's employees and citizens would suffer from a decrease in oil production. This has allowed for companies such as Lukoil to adjust to the decrease in oil prices despite recent decrease in demand. All of this news came after a meeting that was held in Doha, Qatar, regarding the decision of whether or not to slow the production of oil worldwide. The result of this meeting was a great deal of disagreement among the OPEC members. Saudi Arabia is pushing for a freeze in oil production as the average cost of oil continues to drop. On the other hand, Iran was expected to attend this meeting but failed to due to the fact that their sanctions have recently been lifted, allowing for them to produce oil once again at a high rate. Given the recent changes in China's environmental policies, the world's oil supply has been put into a state of surplus. Although China is the world's leading manufacturer, it is important for large oil companies to determine whether or not other manufacturers may make similar changes to their environmental policies in the future before they decide to push for greater production. This decision proves difficult as these large oil exporters run the risk of underproducing oil when there is potential for an increase in demand. In my opinion, the health of the environment and the people living in it should be taken seriously by the world's governments. And that's the conclusion to my passion project. Thank you.